Hola, mujeres! Welcome to summer. And today, John and I, we've been going back and forth like, oh, we're going to name this episode and how do we not disrespect? So I want to say this to you. Like, have you ever felt guilty for saying no to your parents when they ask you for something? Like, that has been our back and forth. It's like, if you're a people pleaser, if it's always saying hard for you to say no to someone, if you ever feel like you're always in debt with your parents, like for me personally, I feel like I owe so much to my parents that every time they ask me for something, I'm gonna say, especially my mom, it's like it's so hard for me to say no. And I say like I'm the eldest daughter, but then I have another sibling, and I'm like, but am I the only one that has to be responsible for everything? And then if I say no, I'm like, oh, but then I feel bad and I owe her because she takes care of my children. I could go on, but Jana, like, Jana here on the other side, this girl is a master at building boundaries.
I don't know.
Boundaries.
I wouldn't call it a master.
But better than me. Like talking it through before we start recording, she's like, "You need to stop guilt tripping yourself," and I'm like, "Oh, is that what it's called?" Because we were talking about something, and then she's like, "But I don't feel bad." I'm like, "You see, but for me, I would be like, no, but my mom. If that was me, but my mom's doing this, but she's doing that." And she's like, "But you didn't ask her to do that." And I'm like,
she offered to do that, so then like, now you're guilt tripping yourself.
I'm like, that's true. But still, that's how my brain is wired. I'm like, it's so hard for me to say no. I feel like I'm the bad daughter. I feel like I'm not honoring them. And for years, I've been married now, almost 15 years, dating 20 years. And recently, for the first time, I felt like I finally defended my husband. Like, I know I still don't know how I'm married. um, but my mom has always been disrespectful. Like, she feels that my husband has a certain type of personality that because he has that XYZ personality that she could say, mean things about him. And I just stay quiet because I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. But then I also need to set those boundaries and say, like, hey, I'm the one that's married to him. Si soy yo que estoy aguantando eso, like, eso es un problema mío, like, no es un problema tuyo. So the other day I said something to her and I'm like, hey, I don't want you to say this about him or especially with this person, XYZ person. And she, that was like the end of the world. And it's like, oh, like getting offended. But I was telling Janet, I wanted to talk about this episode and have her share with us because I have a 13-year-old son that he's a teenager and he's at a very vulnerable stage. Like his hormones all over the place, his emotions. His dad is his superhero, and I don't want him to keep hearing my mom say stuff about his dad and seeing his mom, like seeing me not saying anything about it. So that was, and I'm like, Jana, we need to record about this. And I want you, like, I'm sharing with you guys my thought process, like
well, especially when those things are being said out loud.
Right.
When he's around.
Right. When he's around. And it's just like, I've been letting this happen for years. So now I'm just trying to like rewire my brain and say, like, I'm not disrespecting my mom. Like, first of all, I'm disrespecting myself because that's my family. Like, that's my husband, my son. And second, like, disrespecting my husband, disrespecting my son. And then my daughter that eventually is going to be 7. Like right now, she may not understand, but she's going to grow up with that narrative. So like, I need to be very intentional on how I protect and take care of my husband, my son, and my daughter. And then overall me, because that's my mental health. I'm always battling like, which side am I going to take or what do I do? And for me, it has just been very easy to just stay quiet, and that's not okay.
Yeah. And I don't think it's about taking sides or also not about disrespecting your parents at all. I think it's about, and we talked about this before we started recording.
We have a whole pre-episode before turning
we just didn't record it. I think it's about setting boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yes, boundaries. Because it's really difficult to set boundaries, just like she said, with our parents, because we think we owe them so many things, which yes, because we are Hispanics, right? We're Latinos. We most of our parents are immigrants. They came to this country. They gave us like the life that we have today. And we know that we owe them so much, right? And I agree with them.
Carry all that
Yes.
here that we I can't say no. I'm like, they have sacrificed so much for me.
And we get and I 100% get that, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I have thanked my parents so much for that. And I, to this day, I always say that to them. However, there comes a point in life when you are at this stage in life where we are, where we have families, where we have our own lives, where we are 30 something years old, where we've already built our own lives, where we no longer have to ask for permission for things, and where we also have to care for our own families. And not being disrespectful, is just setting boundaries for certain things that they may say that they don't necessarily think about. Like, let's say that our parents now are at an age, at least like our parents, right? Are at an age that they say things and they may not mean it in a way that we think that they mean it. They just say it just to say it, and they don't really think about it. When in reality, the things that they do say are mean things, and they do hurt people, but they don't think about those things. So I think it is our job as women, and as, us, because we're the eldest daughters, to, I guess, set the boundary and to make sure that we tell them, right? Like, hey, we don't think it's okay for you to say those things. Obviamente, we don't do it like al frente de quien sea que lo dijo, pero I think there's a time and a place when you pull your parents aside and you sit down with them and you have a conversation. I think sometimes, because our parents, at least for me, es un poquito difícil because, for example, my mom is a little more, mi papá y mi mamá come from like a military background. So they're a little more strict. Un poquito más estrictos. Not so much my mom. My mom has always been very flexible, and she understands, and she's very open, and she gets things. She knows que las cosas son diferentes. Afuera de la policía, afuera de la militaria, than like real life. However, my dad has always been like a lot more strict, and he does these things like from the lens of like the military. So con él un poquito más difícil because he's also very, ¿cómo te digo? Machista, right? Which a lot of our parents are, right? Like a lot of our dads are, and a lot of Latino men are. So con mi papá es un poquito más difícil porque sitting down with him is like having to hablar with a, like with a wall. Because it's like you talk to them and you tell them like, hey, I understand que like back in the days, this is how things were done, and I know you expect things to be this way. However, that's not how things work nowadays, right? So I would appreciate that whatever it is that you think was okay back then, it's something that we don't do today. And honestly, like, al principio se hacía un poquito difícil, y él no lo entendía. And my dad and I have a very, our personalities are very similar. So we tend to crash a lot. And so it takes a while for us to actually have like a really, ¿cómo te digo? Una conversación. Yeah, yes. Like una conversación, like to actually, to a point where we're like, okay, we see eye to eye, like, and I understand. So toma mucho tiempo, but I think when we get to the point that he gets to where I'm going, where I tell him like, hey, again, like, I don't think you understand que like, yo ya no tengo 5 años, like, ya yo no vivo contigo, this is a different country, like, no estamos en la República Dominicana, las cosas son bien diferentes aquí, ya yo tengo mis propios hijos, yes, mi esposo es diferente a however you think a husband should look like, en los años pasados, whenever you were growing up. But for me, my husband and what he does for our family is what I need for me and my family. So if that doesn't work for you, it's like tu vas sad. That's what works for me. So you should be happy that whatever it is that he does for my family and for me works for us, and that I'm happy, and that my kids are okay, that we're safe, that we're okay, and that it works for us. So I think it's just having those conversations, and again, setting the boundaries and telling them like, hey, I get it, like ellos no tan feliz, ellos like they want things their own way, and like to your point, que tú dices like tu mamá is like, oh, ella siempre está hablando cosas de like Ernesto, and she's just like, and she's probably like, oh, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's whatever. Like,
yeah,
why are you so upset? Because I said something. And in reality, it's like, but it affects me
the children, like
and
that
my family.
That was my light bulb, because to me, it's like, oh, I know how she is. So it's like, guys, like like here, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna be like, you spoke that about me, but I'm only sharing it because we're those One Latinas podcast, and I feel like I'm not the only one. And in Latinos, like in our culture, I think there's a passive aggressive that happens.
Yes.
And we think it's normal. But to me, I just been thinking more about it, because I don't want my kids to think that that's normal. And I want them to have boundaries, and I want them to be able to build boundaries with me as well. So like with you hearing of how your dad's machista, I'm like, I was blessed. My dad's not machista, but my husband is. So I'm going to have to teach my daughter on how to have a conversation with her dad, with my husband, once she becomes a teenager, because I already know that when she asks, Dad, can I go out with my friends, he's gonna be like, oh heck no. If your mom goes, yeah, but not you by yourself. And she's gonna be like, but Dad, I'm 15 and we're not like like when you were growing up. So we're gonna have to go work to do that. Like
yeah, it's gonna take a lot of work, and it's gonna take you and your your support to to work through that with her, you helping her. And again, it's really not easy, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time, porque yo tampoco soy la única. I think you guys, some of you who have listened to the podcast for a while now, know that like I have two other siblings. I also have a sister who's the middle child, and her and I have always had to have these conversations with our parents about setting boundaries, because they always have something to say about anything. It could be our husbands, it could be, they always want us to do whatever it is that they want us to do. And even though, and I understand that like sometimes it's like me hace sentir un poquito mal, because sometimes like I don't want to do that to them, where like no, like you have to understand that like I don't want to do what you want me to do, but it's like pero hay que ponerlo en su sitio sometimes, and we both have to do that in a way, like I said, that is not, doesn't feel disrespectful.
Yeah,
porque I know que you feel like, oh, I feel like I owe them so much, and yes, I get that, and I do remember that all the time. But I think at this point, to your point, if we go back to where you mentioned like, oh, like I feel like yo necesito hacer everything she says, because yo whatever it is that she's done for me, like yo I owe her so much, so then I can say no to her. And la realidad is that I feel like you've already done.
Yeah. And the day that I got married, which was 15 years ago, I need to understand that it's only for three people: God, the wife, and the husband, not also the parents. And it's like I never knew how to balance that out. Like it took me years. Like I remember I would have to, like my husband has always wanted to move out of state. And it wasn't until not too long ago, probably like 3 years ago, is when I was like, okay, yes, I'll move. But for me, it was devastating. I'm like, how am I going to move away from my parents? Like, no. And it's like, it's like, but then I need to understand, I need to follow my husband wherever he wants to go.
You gotta do what's best for you.
Yeah, but for me, in my mind, it's always been like, oh, but there's so many people that don't have their parents alive, God forbid, for me. Or, people that have their parents in other countries. Like, I always just felt so blessed that I had my parents nearby, supporting parents. Like, they're the ones that have always been there for me. So that's where I would tell Jana, like, like, now I need to start setting boundaries. And it's not horrible. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a horrible situation. But it's just like little things that now with the new generation, I need to break those cycles. And it's also because of the culture, like I said, like the whole passive aggressive, like it's like we're always want to be so united. So something that we were talking about earlier is I was that toxic person in the family once we took our first family trip. It was my parents, my brother, his wife, his kids, me, my husband, and our kids. And I in my mind, it was like, yeah, I planned everything out. In my mind, since we were traveling together, I felt like even when we were at the resort, we had to do everything together. And Janet was like, "Oh my gosh, no, you don't do that." But like, I'm just telling you guys of how my mindset would be. Like, it was always like this unity, and I'm like, I need. And after that, we went to a resort. I don't know, fast forward probably 3 years after our first trip going to a resort, and we went all together. And in my mind, I was like, okay, we came here to go to, for example, to visit the farm, and I know we're leaving out of the states to go to the art all together, and we're gonna go there for a purpose. But then after that, that's not my problem. What we all do. But if I would have not changed my mindset, and also like like how my parents would also think like, oh no, we have to be together, and like I'm gonna offend them if I'm not together. Like I understand, like, hey, my brother and his family, they could do their own thing. That's totally fine. My husband, if he wants to do something different, I need to be able to have the guts to tell my parents, like, hey, we're not gonna stay with you because my husband and I want to do this. But back then I would be like, no, like here, we're here with my parents. They pay for our flights, so we all like that's like the guilt tripping, and it's like, but then when you tell me like, but they offered, you didn't ask them to. But for me, it's always like, but I owe them. Like, but how is it that if they invited us, why would I go elsewhere? But it's like a whole mindset, and it's
Yeah.
just like, like it's been really hard throughout the years for me to separate. Like, hey, I have my own family, and this, and then me growing up in the family business, and now going back to it, that's a whole nother dynamic. It's like now I'm gonna
Which
feel.
forces you to set even more boundaries now
Yeah.
that you're spending a lot more time with your family since you're back in the business. So.
Yeah, I remember you asked me like, "Oh, so what boundaries are you asking?" Like, I remember it was only the picking up from school, but I said we'll talk in a year from now to see to see what we set. Um, but yeah, like so, Jana, like for you, I wanted for you to share of when your parents ask you for something, how have you learned to say no but still keep that relationship respectful and that they don't feel resented? Like, do you just do some explaining before it, or do you
Oh
just
no.
say no? Because for me, I'm thinking like I have to like prepare this whole reason on why, and like
So I'm not gonna
because
say
then that night, if I say no that night, I'm not gonna sleep. I'm gonna be having all these things. And I'm like, Ernie, like I said this to my mom.
oh
What do
wow.
you think how she feels, or even to like a family member? Like I said something to my
I don't
daughter,
think you have to
over the
explain
phone,
yourself.
and I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna feel bad. And he's like, you said that to her. I'm like, I didn't mean it that way. So I do this whole telenovela in my head.
So I think with when I was younger, obviously, because again, I was younger, yes, I would, when I didn't have a family yet, like my own family, if I couldn't do something for them, like, yeah, I would explain myself, like, yeah, I can't because I'm doing XYZ. Now that I've learned so much about life, right, and I'm more knowledgeable, and I am a busier person, right, like I have a job and I have my kids and I have my husband, there's just so much that's going on with me that I feel like I don't owe an explanation to anybody. So, like, if my parents ask me to do something for them and I can't do it, I would tell them, like, hey, I can't do it for you right now. But if I can do it later, like I'll tell them, like, I can't do it now, but I can do it at this time. And I will never tell them like, no, I can't do it, period. I've never told my parents I can't do something for them, period, because yes, to be honest, as an eldest daughter, there is part of me. I'm not gonna say that I'm just like cold hearted and I'm gonna be like, nope, I can't help you. Like, talk to someone else.
Like,
call my sister.
Life,
yes,
so no.
Right. Like, call my sister, call my brother, because I'm not. That's it. Yo no te puedo ayudar. I have a life, obviously, no. Pero I do obviously do tell them like, no puedo ahora. However, I can help you at this day at this time. That I do, because as an eldest daughter, I do feel like part of me tells me internally that I still have to support my parents, somehow, some way, like if I can. Si yo tengo la manera de hacerlo, and I still have the time at some other time, or even if I don't have the time, like I'll find the time later on. Like I may not have the time right now, but I will find the time later on to do it.
Right.
But I will never say no to them, like because I don't want to do it. Like I'll do it later on. So esa parte de me, I have not changed, obviously, because as an eldest daughter, that's something that's engraved in me. Mm-hmm. Because again, we're the house managers. We're expected to do all these things. The role models. Like ya, es algo que ya es like
ingrained in us.
Ya nacimos con eso. We have all these expectations. I don't think it's something que. It's just something que no va a cambiar. Yeah. Because this is something that we were born with. Ya. This is our lives, and it's just never gonna change. So por esa parte is something that I know I will always find a way. And I will never say no to them. But I do say no at the moment. It's just that I find a different time and a different day to get it done for them. But I do say no. Like that's boundaries.
At the moment. It's like with our kids that we set the boundaries. Like, hey, can you, I don't know, can we go to the park today?
Yeah, like
we can go, just not today.
Exactly.
So on XYZ thing.
Yeah, but si ellos me dicen like, oh, I need you to do this right now. Like, no, like I can't do it right now. But however, I can do it at this day at this time. So I will let you know when I'm available. And
since we're into self-care and Jatna is like the queen of self-care, I think that's very intercorrelated, because it's like you're protecting your peace, and if you already have something set schedule, it gets you backed up, it gets you stressed out, or sometimes you're asked to do something that you know that you're going to have to be with people that you don't want to sometimes. So you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to this birthday party because, my parents asked me to. And you're like, but then those people that are going to drain me, for example. So, it's like when we talk about self-care, it's protecting your peace and it's putting yourself first. Like, I feel that a lot of Latinas struggle with putting ourselves first and saying no. We're people pleasers at heart. So I think it also just comes from out of there. So we just wanted to talk about it. Like I feel like it's a very bold episode.
To share with you guys our experiences.
Like, oh my gosh, my mom is gonna be like, well, I'm not with me. But I'm just like,
but it's real life. It's what happens with us. And we want to share that with you guys, because we know that obviously we would hope that you guys actually go through the same things with your parents. Yeah, we just don't want you
to feel alone. And it's like, John and I are always like, whenever we're talking about on WhatsApp, it's like,
I wonder if people go through the same thing.
We know that it's happening out there. So for whatever reason for me, my wake-up call was like, hey, I don't want this to affect my teenage son, and then later on my daughter. So that's like my why. So for me, I have thinking of like, okay, with the way I'm going to reply to my mom is like, what's my why? And like, what's my reason behind it? And so far it's like,
but do you have to though?
I don't have to, but hey, it's a step forward. So for going from staying quiet to like saying, hey, we shouldn't say this because of XYZ. Maybe one day. But for me, I always think about like, I'm such a crybaby. Like sometimes I'll be washing dishes in my parents' house, and I'll be so grateful because we do a family night dinners on Sundays. I'll be telling you like, oh, what you doing? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the day that I won't be here, blah blah. And I'm like, I'll just break out crying.
That's really
but sweet. Like so. But then it's like, okay, but then what about the family I'm creating where my kids, like what example I'm setting for them, or am I sacrificing some of the things for my own family because of other family members, for example? Because I know I mentioned parents because I feel like that's who we get most of the guilt trip with. But it also happens with other family members, and we like very close, and that it's hard for us to say no. And then you're like, sacrificing your, the people that you live with, your family, to estar bien con ellos, to be.
I mean, it even happens with children.
Yeah.
So, let's be honest. Like teenagers, that happens with teenagers too. So
I know we always give like a little like closing, but I would say the action is take a moment to sit down and think about like what is it that you're not setting boundaries with, and stop and just give yourself a reason on why you should stop guilt tripping.
Yeah, give yourself permission.
Yes.
To start setting boundaries with whoever. It could be your parents, it could be your spouse, it could be your sibling, whoever, anybody. Just take the first step. You know, siempre se toma el primer paso. It's just like setting boundaries. You don't have to, I mean, maybe you want to explain yourself, pero my thing is that you don't have to explain yourself.
Yeah.
Pero
you guys should have seen Jana's reaction. She's like, what? I don't have to explain myself. I'm like, but
I've come too far to have to explain myself. No, like you can't. I'll do it later, but I can't right now. But you can always, siempre hay un primer paso. You can start somewhere, right?
Yeah. Like, send us a DM. You guys want to talk to it?
Yes.
Send us a DM. Go and give a rating on our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check out our website, dosvolatinas.com. All of our episodes are on there. Our Dos Latinas self-care journal. You could journal about it on, having those days. I always say I love to write out like what I have done and have accomplished, and an affirmation just reminds me of like, hey, I have accomplished stuff through the week. My self-care workbook also for sale on Amazon. So when you go on Amazon, type in Dos Latinas, and you guys will see our self-care journal and workbook. So hopefully you guys one day gift that to yourself, add it to your budget. Like, hey, this month I'm adding this to my cart on Amazon because, we love Latinas that are very financially responsible and are also
take care of yourselves. Yes.
Jinx. Jinx, you owe me some wine. I already finished my cup, and John. But anyways, but thank you so much for sitting in with us. Take care.
Hasta la próxima. Ciao.